Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishnan, and here basically we are discussing 218 part of the formula basically. So here basically we are discussing that how basically the software industry has basically done their stuff basically. How software industry basically has uh, created the entire industry basically. That is basically the digital industry basically. For example, in Vadodara city there are around assume that there are around 35 lakh people. So 35 lakh people oxygen power supply basically that is given by the digital world basically, that they are basically controlling the oxygen, but it's an automated process basically. Nobody can access that data. Only big software company basically can access that data because they are basically activating. For example, 6 to 7 p.m basically is the time of Capgemini, Capgemini data, and Capgemini basically has produced 1,000 human needs. Same way, 7 to 8 time is of TCS. So TCS basically has produced around 1,200 human needs. So they have the list that how many people have taken the human needs, purchased the human needs, and consumed that human needs. According to that, basically they have to send the oxygen data. So here the control basically has given to each and every director that you are going to activate the oxygen power supply, because without activation they can't get the oxygen power supply. And this basically the software blood cells basically few software company blood cells are basically permanent. So their activation is basically very much, so that's why basically two to three directors basically are allocated to the each and every oxygen power supply. So just see basically the dangerous software level companies are. They have created the human needs, so they are basically responsible for supplying the human needs, sorry, supplying the oxygen power data of the human needs. So it's very dangerous basically. So like this basically, not only TCS, not only Capgemini, like Accenture, eClearX, and BMC software company Pune, like this each and every software company basically produce their human needs, and they are basically responsible for supplying the oxygen power supply data. So each and every people basically are responsible. So each and every people basically are responsible here. So it's very dangerous. So here basically in last video basically we were discussing that if any poor people basically poor person basically, he basically is a project manager. He basically is last designation as project manager, and he basically searching for job, and he was basically not getting job, and he basically assumed that has done the 30 years of fasting also. Then basically one of the government people basically asked that God people that this person basically is searching the job basically. So should we give him job or not? Then basically they told that yeah, you basically that's not our duty basically. He has basically done 30 years fasting. That is that is his responsibility. That is his basically. We have not told him to do the fasting. So this was the basically answer from God family. So this type of family are basically of God of our planet basically. So this type of families basically are of God family, and this basically was tracked by one of the person basically who actually created the Earth planet, and he was basically shocked basically by behavior of the God basically, God family basically. That how basically God families are, how God families are. That one person is doing 30 years fasting and he's not getting the job. He's not getting the job. Few basically group basically is controlling his jobs. He's controlling his money. He's not able to earn the money. So few people basically are controlling the God family also. That basically also came into the picture. That also basically came into the picture. So this basically discussion we are going to discuss later on. But one thing is basically that clear that basically the God family has not helped that person. He is searching for job. Then also basically the God family basically not help the person basically. So that basically is one topic basically that we are going to discuss later on after one or two videos. So here basically the question is subscription plan data basically, which the why basically we are going to discuss later on. That is because the one or two video basically which we are going to discuss, that basically directly connected to the God family energies. So like this, the subscription plan data basically, which was getting passed by the World Bank, and World Bank is telling that we are basically into the creation of the 3 to 4 lakh energies, 3 to 4 lakh subscription plan. Basically, we have created for especially for India country, for 200 crore people. So for this many people, basically we have created the subscription plan data, subscription plan data. So like this same way, basically each and every people of the objects owner basically, for example TCS company is one of the company owner. So they have produced 1,000 human needs. Capgemini has produced 1,200 human needs. Accenture has produced 800 human needs. Like this, each and every software company basically has produced their human needs, and they are basically consumed by the humans, and they are basically has generated the blood cells also. So they have the list of the basically people who actually has consumed their human needs, and according to that basically they are passing the oxygen power supply. So nowadays basically if you are eating any foods anything basically, then also basically you have to very careful. You have to you should know basically from where this actually the production has done. So nowadays the life has become like this. So that's basically different thing basically. But nobody do any bad basically, right? Anybody is going to do bad for your body parts. Anybody is going to damage your head. Anybody is going to damage your eye. Anybody is going to damage your teeth. No, basically nobody is going to damage. Why? Because they are very professional group. That group basically are professional because they have to give the answer to blood group basically. But that you have basically attacked that blood group. So that basically answer they have to give. So nowadays, basically to produce any objects, for example, TCS say that we have 1,200 human needs. So they are basically have to basically capture their human needs. Basically, is there anybody person is basically misusing his human needs also? So that type of things are also basically there. So here the discussion basically we are doing is subscription plan data, which basically consume each and every human needs which are basically consumed by default. Basically if a subscription plan group says that we are sending some different oxygen power supply, so that is not possible. Why? Because the blood cells which is generated, that much only oxygen power supply basically it's going to pass. Other than that basically no oxygen power supply is going to pass, right? No other power supply is going to pass. No oxygen power supply is going to pass. Why? Because he has basically not eaten that food. Then basically, why he's going to get that oxygen power supply? So oxygen power supply basically you can say it's a magnetic effect. Basically, it's a magnetic effect, and that is basically happened. Basically, that basically happens according to the blood cells. Basically, you can say. So according to the blood cells, whatever blood cells he has taken, according to that blood cells, basically he gets the oxygen power supply, and this is basically stored in one of the computer's data. Basically one of the computers data, and basically one person basically was telling that he was basically calculating his 24 hours oxygen power supply, and oxygen 24 hours basically what he has done, he was basically creating time sheet. So he got that basically around 1.5 minute basically was missing. He told that basically where basically 1.5 minute was basically missing. Then he thought that he basically has visited one of the shop and he purchased some stationary item. That time basically his body was basically into the sleep mode, gone into the sleep mode due to some uh, mobile basically, due to some mobile basically, and due to that mobile basically, that person basically got into the sleep mode. Then basically he was not able to track actually what actually happened in that 1.5 minutes. So he was shocked actually. What actually happened to that person basically in 1.5 minutes? Because he was in sleep mode. He was in sleep mode. Then basically the satellite group basically tracked that from where which area basically that sleep mode was basically was controlling. Sleep mode basically was controlling, and they taken the action. Like this basically here basically we are not discussing what action basically they have taken, but here basically we are discussing that what actually sleep mode is, what is death mode. For this basically lots of experiments are basically ongoing, right? There are basically 7 to 8 lakh city in this world. Just taking as an example, in real basically it's more than 7 to 8 lakh. 7 to 8 lakh cities basically is there in this world basically. So minimum basically 7 to 8 lakh experiments are going ongoing. So death basically can happen how basically? Death can happen through water also basically. One person basically has he's basically underwater since many time basically. So death basically happens from water also. Death basically happens from water also. That basically he has done the there is one country basically that is Italy. In that basically there is one city basically that is Sri Jesus Christ city basically. There basically they are doing the up to this level experiment with the God permission. With the God permission basically. That also with the God permission. So God basically Jesus Christ basically is doing the experiment of like this basically. That also basically God family. So you can just imagine basically what is the condition of the world basically. And this basically each and everything basically is watched by the group basically that group basically who actually created the world, and they basically tracked each and everything basically what actually is happened. One basically one more story basically, this is basically real story. One person basically got marriage. He was basically not rich, so he got marriage and uh, he visited basically assume that in Bangalore, in assume that in one of the city in India. He was basically from India basically, and he visited one of the city, and he basically got married. He basically got married. He was basically growing very well. Basically, he was having good salary. He was earning more than 70 to 80,000 per month. So that basically got jealous by one of the group basically of one of the his family and one of the friends basically. One of the friends family friends basically told that he is basically earning lots of money. He is earning lots of money. So we have to stop that person basically that he why how basically he's earning more than money because he might basically become richer than us. So entire group basically become one and planned one marriage basically. Planned one marriage with the HIV/AIDS girl. This was planned. That is confirmed. This was basically planned. This is also confirmed. So the assume that there are around 120 people in this plan. They basically transferred a set of money to one group basically to one group basically. They told that basically this person has to get his career totally down, so for that basically do some plan. So they basically that group basically has done basically marriage with, they told that basically can we do his marriage with one at the HIV AIDS girl, because company basically don't take HIV AIDS people. If he will basically get the job basically, then also he's not going to get the in the big post basically, because in big post basically HIV AIDS people basically can't do the work. So that type of basically the mentality is. So like this basically By jealousy, that is called jalan in Hindi basically. They basically planned this marriage, and that girl basically that the plan was HIV/AIDS girl marriage. So they basically that person also basically got HIV, but that person basically don't know that he basically got the marriage with one of the HIV/AIDS girl, one of the HIV/AIDS girl, one of the HIV/AIDS girl, one of the HIV/AIDS girl. So like this basically after a certain time basically something happened basically, uh, and suddenly that girl basically went to her house basically, and then basically she never came. Then basically he thought that what actually happened. Nothing was basically happened. Then basically he tracked he checked his blood cells, and then basically thought he got that he was basically having HIV/AIDS. Then basically he was not getting interview calls. He was not getting job. He was basically not getting nothing. He was basically not getting a single call also basically. So the each and every HR people also basically got this information that that this person basically has got the marriage with HIV/AIDS. That 120 people basically has created the done the advertising up to that level that basically he is not going to get the job only basically in the market. So, like this, basically, the 120 people assume that one was from Uttar Pradesh, one was from Bihar, one was from Himachal Pradesh, one was from Gadwal, one was basically from Bihar. Like this, basically, they started their journey. Basically, they basically have two girls, three boys. Like this, they started their journey, and they basically ended that person's journey. Do you know how? They basically thought that we have basically done this HIV/AIDS plan, so in future basically it's might possible that he might become father, because HIV/AIDS people can become father also. So they done the nasbandi also of that particular person. They have done the nasbandi of also that of that particular person. Then basically they told that now basically we are basically going to be happy and our future will be perfectly fine. Our future basically is going to be perfectly fine because we have already finished this generation. So now basically whatever things we are going to do, whatever things basically going we are going to do, we are going to play cricket, then we are going to win the match. He is basically not going to be interfere in future. Basically his family also basically will not be exist, because if we have already done his nasbandi, so he's not going to have his future family also. So if we are playing cricket, then basically we are only going to win. We are visiting in this place basically, then nobody is going to give trouble to us. We are going to apply to this company, then basically no his people basically is going to bother us. We are going to earn money, and basically no other competitor will be there with us. Like this basically they have told, they have done the plan also. They have done that the 120 people, they have transferred the money from the one of the account, and they basically won. They have thought like this. Like this they thought that in future basically he is not going to give problem to us. So like this basically they told that family, that girl's family, to do his nasbandi also, because they have given the money, lots of money to that person, that group basically, who actually planned that marriage. So like this is generation also, and at last basically that person died also. Then basically the entire 120 people has done jashan. All basically was dancing in the software company. Each and every people basically started laughing that we have done. Now basically nobody is going to harass us. Now future is our planet is going to move according to our direction. Like this they have thought that, because he has basically died, and that person basically was poor person. Basically he has not done any type of plan also. He has basically not done any type of plans also. After that, basically, he has not done any type of plan. So, like this, the moral of the story basically says that for Jalan basically, jealous basically, the people can do anything. So, this was the best example basically of the Jalan. Jalan means jealous basically, jealousy basically, you can say. That this person will die, then basically, no, he is not going to harass us. He is not going to give trouble to us. He is not going to trouble to us. So, like this, basically, in this basically government also basically helped that group basically, because without government permission nothing happens basically, not a single marriage basically happens. Like this basically, not a single marriage basically happens without government permission. So like this basically you can just assume they were basically his best friends basically, they were doing they were eating together, they were drinking together. Like this basically they were best friends basically, so best friends only basically cheated that person basically, and that person basically sudden after age basically around 8 to 9 years basically people can stay, right? After that basically antibiotic happens, and the antibiotic also basically takes for 2 to 4 years more, then basically antibiotic will also not work. Like this basically that person basically died, and all basically has done jashan, they have done drink, they have done party, they have done dance, each and everything basically they have done in each and every software company basically, the entire group basically of that 120. Like this each and every country basically has done session, because they have reached up to that level basically. So here basically entire country also came into picture, entire country also basically came into picture in this darshan. So like this the energy basically got generated here basically, what actually from the moral story basically what we are taking talking, that is one energy basically got generated, that was basically the negative energy, the negative energy of that 120 group, and that person basically single alone, that person basically, that 120 group was basically assumed that 10 to 20 lakh basically people, and that person basically was alone. So like this the negative energy got generated. So like this basically there are many energies basically in this world which has generated already, which has basically already generated in this world basically, you can say, which has generated already lots of energy in this world. So like this, each and every basically software company basically comes into the picture. They collect this type of energies. They give the set of oxygens. So like this, the moral of the story basically was that death energy basically, which basically each and every people basically is passing. Each and every people basically dies, right? So their death energy basically is passed by set of certain groups basically. This is basically the system basically you can say also. If death energy basically is passed in the oxygen, then basically even with the God approval this has basically done. With the God approval basically this has done. So God also basically, God family also basically can't do anything, because the death energy has passed in the oxygen part supply. Like this basically you can just imagine the system basically which is created. Yesterday in the last video basically we had already taken into the consideration that there are few groups basically, there are few groups basically, chief minister, prime minister, mlas, corporators, doctors group, and the human needs basically creation groups, and software company groups, because software company also basically can create a human souls basically. Human soul space basically you can say, on the base of that only his entire body is working. his entire body is working like this. Basically there are more than 6 crore human needs, sorry, human souls basically inside the each and every human body. So one person basically can have 6 crore life. 6 crore time basically he will die, and he can have his 6 crore life. So 6 crore multiply by, at least they assume that one person is going to have his life for 99 year. So 99 year multiply by 6 crore. That much basically the age basically of that person can have in this world basically. So for this each and every stuff basically which we have discussed, that basically has a consideration that has basically connected into the set of experiments basically you can say. And basically everybody knows that who is the digital world basically, who is the one number one in digital world in front of the world basically, that is America, that everybody knows. But real picture is totally different. Text box equal to thousand cities, and thousand city basically has created in different world basically. And the main thing here is the power supply basically, which the text box power supply is. For example, if you want to, if you are loading the website, then basically you are able to see that text box, right? That basically how you are seeing that text box. That is through power supply basically. So the power company basically has already collected the power supply from that thousand cities, and they have passed to each and every computers. So whenever you are going to load the computer, that time the thousand cities data energy is going to pass it to the computer, and that text box is going to display. So like this, there are many user controls which software companies has created. Combo box is there, check boxes are there, radio buttons are there. They basically do the set of process also. That also basically we have discussed which type of process they do. Which type of process they do. So here basically we are stopping here. Assume that for one user control, that is text box, there are around thousand cities. Like this, assume that there are around 11 control box available in the websites. They basically created, each basically control basically has created from thousand cities only. So like this basically thousand multiply by 11 or 12 basically. So you can just imagine the number of cities basically, more than basically 10,000, 11,000 basically cities are basically created. So we are going to discuss this about the 11 to 12,000 cities, 11 to 12,000 cities basically, 11 to 12,000 cities. What actually, how the functionality is working, and how they created this text box. What is the user story behind this each and every control box, user control, radio button, check boxes, how they basically designed it, and how they basically told that 12,000 city, on the basis of 12,000 cities, each and every user controls are basically going to be used and going to be processed. So that basically we are going to discuss in the next level, that is basically 219 part. This is 218 part.